Chelmsford is a city which I've done a walk around before 3 years ago, and part of that walk took me along the Chelmer and Blackwater navigation. Now there is a River Chelmer and River Blackwater respectively, the former of which is actually named after Chelmsford itself. Ford or ford literally meaning the crossing of a river. Despite all of that though, this is not where I'm starting my walk today. To do that, I have to catch a bus because the place I'm going to is no longer served by a railway line. So here's my bus, the 73, which goes to Maldon. This is the route. I'm going to be jumping off at Heybridge, the Colliers. I'm waiting for the 10:15. If I didn't make it, 2 hours for the next one. Well, what a nice welcome this is to Heybridge Basin. Just gotten off the bus and there's a village sign here to mark the beginning of our walk. This is a great start to the walk already, right beside the water. And this is the end of the Chelmer and Blackwater navigation here at Heybridge Basin. I believe the River Blackwater runs into the navigation, so it becomes a canalised river and then heads out that way into the estuary, whilst the River Chelmer is actually over there and making its confluence with the Blackwater. So it's where all the water courses meet. So I'm going to start my walk along the Chelmer and Blackwater navigation. If I stayed on this all the way, I would make my way back to Chelmsford, but that is quite a considerable walk. I'm only going to be walking about 2.5 miles into the nearby town of Maldon instead. This is quite an isolated part of the England coast path. There's a lot of river estuaries out this way and no railway branch lines to serve these places, at least not anymore. See a road sign there for Holloway Road. Not the same Holloway Road in London, that's quite far away, but we are on National Cycle Network Route 1, which does run in towards London, uses the Greenwich Foot Tunnel. That was a delightful stretch along the Chelmer and Blackwater navigation. I'll come back and do another walk along it one day, but for now I'm going to head up onto this road which will lead me into Maldon. First stop on my tour of Maldon is Station Road, and it kind of gives the game away, doesn't it? There did used to be a Maldon station here, which opened in 1848 on a branch line down from Witham. It's a fantastic Victorian railway station building, isn't it? It's stood the test of time, hasn't it? It's very grand. Fortunately, its surroundings is not the best, pretty grim industrial area. It was renamed from Maldon to Maldon East in 1889 as a new branch line came up off of the Southminster line at Woodham Ferrers, later renamed South Woodham Ferrers, because on that line a Maldon West opened. In 1907 it changed again to become Maldon East and Heybridge, and eventually in 1964 the entire line closed. And at the end of Station Road you have the Combined Military Services Museum, but this is a dead end, so I'm gonna have to walk back up and around into the town. Passing over the River Chelmer, there's a lot of cars around. Guess because there's no railway. It's a shame there's no railway anymore. It's quite a substantial town, Maldon. It could do with one. That was a surprisingly steep climb up from the river, but I've now made it into Maldon's High Street, which is really nice to walk down. There's a lot to take note of. But I'm just going to focus on the two churches which are so close to each other here. Walk straight down the High Street into Promenade Park. I've already heard locals refer to this as just the Prom. And it's this place which really brought me out to Maldon today. There's even a zoo tucked in this park. You do have to pay admission, but I'm wondering if I just climb up here, can I spot any animals for free? Oh yeah, there's a There's an alpaca over there, or a llama. Oh, there's mini golf here too. I love a bit of mini golf. It really feels like the crown jewel of Maldon, the prom. I've come to sit on the prom and take in the view beside the water here. First came across Maldon when I picked up this booklet, the East of England Visitor Guide, from 4 years ago. I remember I was on a bus journey and I was looking through this and labelling all the places that I hadn't heard of onto a map. So when I got home, I would look in greater detail to see if they were worth visiting, if there were any good walks around, and also if I can actually visit them, because some of them there was no railway station, and one such place was indeed Maldon. And so I labelled Promenade Park onto my map. And so 4 years later, I've finally made it to Maldon, and I'm glad that I have, because it's a really nice place to wander around. At this point, I walked along the Chelmer in the quayside past a bunch of boats, and I was very impressed with the people working on them, because to me it looks very complicated with all of the ropes and sails. So I've looped around Maldon, I've crossed back over the River Chelmer, and I'm once again briefly beside the navigation, under a road bridge. This road actually follows the alignment of that old railway that came up to Maldon from Witham Ferrers, and Maldon East Station sits alongside this road nowadays, so there's nothing left to see. That closed in 1939. Although you can't walk along that old railway, at least not in these parts, what you can do is walk along the old railway towards Witham instead, and it's known as the Blackwater Rail Trail. That's a great name. Why don't more old railway lines have the name of Rail Trail? So I've now made it onto the alignment of the old railway line towards Witham, and you can hear the cars to your right, and that's because the road here heading towards Maldon takes the route of the old railway to that Victorian railway station we saw. Aha! My favourite thing when walking along an old railway line is when you come across one of the old stations, because sometimes there is something left to see, in this case an entire platform. Not just that, but there is an information board as well. You can see the route of the old railway. This was Langford and Alting Station. In the last few years of this railway's existence, there were, what do they call it? German-built rail buses. They look quite strange. I haven't seen one of them before. And the best thing about this is this restored sign here, proudly presenting the station name Langford and Alting, though it was only known as Langford until 1923. I like when they do something like this with information boards and old signs, rather than just kind of let the platform, or in some cases nothing, just kind of lie there and be forgotten about. It's a nice little nod to the history of this area. I've come across a few disused stations with old signs like this, and I always like them. This one is no exception. As the railway left Langford Station though, it would have passed underneath the road up there, but the rail trail nowadays does not do that, so I have to head this way and cross over, and we'll get back to it over that way somewhere. In fact, this is actually the road that I came down on this morning on the 73 bus. You also find in the area of Langford here the Museum of Power. Back onto the rail trail. Slight problem here. Footpath ahead is closed. Diversion route is all the way around on that road that I was walking along. I'd rather not walk on that road. Apparently there's an unsafe bridge. I think I'll take my chances, to be honest. I just need to see if I can actually get around it first. What does this one say? 23rd of September for 21 days. Okay. It's been a while since I've last done an abandoned railway walk, and I really do like them because they're very simple, linear walks through nature. Not when the path is closed. At least no one will be on this path. I just hope I can get out the other side now. You always know you're on an old railway when you have a long straight trail like this and you're either down an embankment or on top of an embankment. And the best things about it is when you come across relics of what used to be there before, like old stations or just anything that kind of shows that it was an old railway line. Can see fencing up there, so I assume that is the unsafe bridge, but there's a path here to the left heading out into the field, so I'm going to take this and see if I can get around the bridge. Well, here it is, and the bridge itself seems to be quite narrow and overgrown, so I can see why it maybe had fallen into a bit of disrepair. We get some fantastic views here across the fields once you've come away from the railway, but there's clearly a path back to it right here. Oh, it's quite flooded underneath the bridge here as well. Maybe that is why there's that path out into the fields, so people don't have to walk through that. Why make me walk around on the road though? No point. Well, I can see the fence on the opposite side blocking me in beside the railway bridge, but luckily, I mean, there's just a way out here instead, so that's easy. Well, this is unexpected. I came across this church here, which I thought looked disused, because it's in quite a strange, cut-off little place, which I don't feel like people would really come to. This is St. Peter's Church, which has not seen a service since 1970. So I've had to come a little bit away from the alignment of the railway again at the site of the next station, Witham Bishops, known as just Wickham until 1913. There's nothing specific to see, like an old platform or sign. The site of the station is over there near them houses, but there is, once we get back beside the railway on the other side of the road, something special to look out for. Here's the road bridge, got to go up and over that just as the river Blackwater is running underneath it. This is the last surviving wooden viaduct in England, the Wickham Bishops Trestle Viaduct, which trains would have went over on this journey between Witham and Maldon. I can imagine that Victorian railway passengers would have been a little bit wary about crossing over a wooden viaduct on a train. This is one bridge in its current state that I wouldn't trust going over today. It's an ancient monument nowadays. It looks like it even still has sleepers up there, right, after all this time. Now, because you can't walk along this part of the old railway line, you do have to come off it every now and again. What we can do instead is follow the river Blackwater, which is a worthy alternative instead. I found the rail trail again, though I've actually had to come off it slightly. You can tell we're nearing the end of the walk or into the final portion as it's starting to get a bit more urban as we near Witham. And I'm passing over the River Brain here, which is a tributary of the River Blackwater. From Witham Station, which I've used before, there is a branch line up to a place called Braintree, where the river runs to. And the railway from Maldon would have ran up and connected with that line to Braintree, and even that one used to carry on much further than it does nowadays. For the final part of my walk along the Blackwater Rail Trail, as I pass underneath a busy road, I came across two weird things: a marshmallow toasting station, which had just been left abandoned, and another disused structure, which I don't know what that was. This is where my walk along the rail trail comes to an end. Good thing as well, because it looks like it's closed up that way. Trains would have carried on straight and then looped around to serve Witham station, so I'm just gonna head directly this way instead. That is the most faded Network Southeast sign I've ever seen. I've made it to Witham station. There's the Braintree branch heading off towards Braintree behind me there. 4 years in the making. I'm glad I finally made it to Maldon. Had a nice walk along the navigation and the disused railway as well. Definitely going to have to come back and visit other isolated Essex coastal locations at some point. But for now, thank you for watching. Join me for another adventure coming soon. By the way, no new stations visited for me today, but I have a written list of all of the stations that I've been to. I've wrote out every single one. And recently, I've put that information onto a spreadsheet and then used the locations for all the stations and overlaid that onto Google Maps. This is very nerdy, and color-coded it on whether I visit it or not. And I've come across a station called Addlestone on Google Maps, which was color-coded red, even though I know that I visited it, which means that I had to compare the spreadsheet and my written list to see which one I had accidentally visited. But it turns out that I just missed one from my written list the entire time, and that station was East Croydon, which I've been to countless times. So actually, East Croydon is station 756, though in reality it was probably station 100 something.